Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Cannon. If you don't know me, I am a senior PMM on the Skype and Teams team. Yes, it is okay to say Teams team, especially to the marketing people, because God, we hate it. So you can drive us nuts like that. If you do know me and you've been in one of my presentations before, then I'm sorry. I apologize right now that you're going to have to sit through another one with me. Joining me is Christian Schott, and he, we export. The joke is we exported 3 things from Germany. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, do it.
Even though I wasn't sure if this is going to work or not. I may have an angry contingent of Germans in the room at the moment. But, we've imported Mercedes-Benz cars. They're great. I'm a personal fan, of course, as you can tell, of the Strudel. And now we've brought Christian Schott to our team from Germany. Thank you for coming to our team, buddy. Appreciate it. And Christian will look after the demo, and I think we'll get cranking and rolling. So we do like questions. Trying to decide, we can go 2 ways about it. If you've got a burning question, that's great. We can answer it. If it's a long question about deployment, I'd probably like you to hold that one a little bit later and see what we can do. But let's go ahead and walk through it. So first of all, the usual confidentiality slide, or as I like to describe it, the HR advisement slide. As in, do you like to work here? Then don't do these things. That would be great. We'd appreciate it. But I will say this, the slide deck you're seeing is, I don't think there's actually any internal-only slides on it. What's that? The demo. That's true. The demo will show you some things that are not yet in market. So, but good news is it's hard for them to show that. But yeah, so the slides are okay. If you decide you like the slide deck in general, grab this deck. It's not really meant to be replayed to customers, but there is an actual deck on OnRamp. For about 25% of the room, you're going to go, and then this big crowd in the middle will be, on what? Like, what is that? Because probably support may or may not be aware of that, but we can help you with that. There's a sales site that is open to any Microsoft full employee that can go ahead and download the deck, and that's really our intelligent communications deck. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do this is kind of a mishmash session, I'll be frank with you. We're going to take you through some of those IC slides, not all of them, but you'll get a feel for them and see how we pitch to customers. I do about 2 to 3 EBCs a month. Right now, I'm at 15 or 16 for the year so far. And my job is to pitch variations of this deck. So not saying you have to do it like I do, but I think for me at least, it's always super helpful to see someone else present how they think about this deck and what they do. So that should be helpful. Then we'll go get into the roadmap a bit, and you'll see a demo of some of the features, and then we can drill into a little bit deeper even then. Okay. So session takeaways, communicate our value proposition for Skype to Business to Microsoft Teams transition. It's amazing, right? We've announced this back in September, and I know still a lot of people sort of are the front line. Most of you people are front line. In other words, there's nobody between you and a customer, right? You are somehow interfacing with a customer all the time. I interface with customers, but probably not in the same amount and level that you do. I'm one of those parachute product guys, right? They parachute you in. You look really shiny, and then you run away before the hard questions begin and let the account team deal with them, right? So, so it's super important to understand this transition. This story has to be told by everybody in this room. If you've chose to come here, you have to be able to tell this story. Maybe not a 63-minute version of it like I do, but you have to be able to articulate cleanly and with conviction what our plan is and understand how to make customers feel comfortable with it. It's not always going to be perfect, right? There's going to be customers who are uncomfortable with this plan, but you guys have to be able to communicate it, and that's why this is, for you, this is a learning event. For me, this is a scaling event, right? I need to scale out the ability to communicate this, and you guys are the ones that can do it for us. So first of all, for all of you surviving now, thank you very much. Super appreciate the work you've done. We made this announcement, and then we looked at the field and said, oh, by the way, you still got to sell stuff, right? Even though we've just sort of rocked the world by saying Skype for Business may or may not be going away, and you need to make this transition. And the field has been very, very great about this. And then poor support, right? All I can think about is the literally strange phone calls that some of the support guys get when, you have a customer call you and go, make up bizarre story. I understand Skype for Business will be, they're gonna change every text field and make it look backwards in it. There'll be just the bizarrest questions in the world. Sometimes they come in from TAMs and sometimes they come in from support people. So thank you guys as well. And of course, consultancy, you guys have to land this thing, right? You have to get the rubber on the road and make sure that it works for them. So there's a little bit of everything in here for that. Okay, so it's not all drastic. I'm very transparent about some of the bumps, but there's also some great news as well, right? So Mott MacDonald is an amazing company. They have really engaged early on and completely bought into the idea about our mobile experience with Teams. And so they're very excited to see that. I'm also kind of impressed too about the next one, which is around Canadian Imperial Bank. So how many people, let's have a little fun. Let's have a little poll, right, Christian? So let's figure that out. So I polled what role you have. Now, think about how many years do you have invested in Skype, or just replace that with UC. So how about you have less than a year on UC, more or less, if you're dealing with it? Okay, one of you. Two. Sir, we appreciate if you'd raise your hand all the way up when we do these things. Thank you. Thank you, appreciate that. How about a year to 5 years? Come on, people. Stretch, it's good for you. I was gonna do this with everybody standing up, and I just knew you people would not get on your feet for this situation. I probably wouldn't have either. How about 5 to 10? Oh, yes. By the way, if we're going to do by role, these are the masochists. For those of the rest of you in the room, you've just seen them raise their hands. And I'm 5 to 10, by the way. I have about 6 years in. Anybody more than 10? Wow. These are the people who have no longer any feeling in their body. So feel free to punch them as you walk by them in the hallways, because they probably won't feel it anyways. Okay, so that's amazing, right? So that kind of leads me all the way back to this quote, believe it or not, which is, how many people have sent me or my colleagues threatening emails about the web client for Skype for Business? And it's okay, the threatening part is a joke. Come on, I know there's a couple over here. Yeah, I was looking for you, Bruce. Yeah, there's a couple of you. Yeah, so, one of the challenging things we've had, and we're gonna talk about that later a little bit more, but one of the challenging things we had was inconsistent client experiences in Skype for Business, right? And as a marketing guy, haha, we have a Mac client. And then the support people were like, no, I'm not supported. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, not that either. And so that was always brutal, right? And then, as our competitors were frankly ahead of us on a web client, or either what we call a thin or zero footprint experience, those were challenges as well, and certainly competitive. Teams is amazing, and this second quote really alludes to that, right? So today, my coworker, Christian Schott, is going to do something unheard of. He will do the entire demo on the Mac, right? And we were like, no, don't do it on the Mac, buddy. Don't do it on the Mac. But actually, with Teams, all the rules change, right? And we'll talk about why that is, and it's super important for you guys to understand that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to jump into a few of these slides about how we talk to customers about intelligent communications, which is completely how we talk about the change that Teams is bringing, both the collaboration and unified communication. So when you look back at the Skype business, many of you in that 5 to 10 year category, or even 1 to 10 year category, have been around to build a lot of this. We have actually achieved amazing growth. So all the kidding aside, Skype for Business has been an amazing growth. And let me tell you, my first role was as a compete lead in the marketing team. And so my job was to kick Cisco, kick Cisco. I'll let you finish that sentence how you feel is appropriate, right? But I would take my shot at Cisco every chance I got. I would slip into their booths. I've been thrown out of their booths every year at Enterprise Connect. It's hilarious. Almost got strong-armed one year. That was fun. So, for all that, it's been an amazing business, and we have slugged it. We have really taken it to our competitors. And Skype for Business, some of you are in the battlefield. You're down in the trenches, but it's really done well. One of the things I'm most proud about, because marketing has a real direct effect on that, is 12 years as a leader in the Gartner Unified Communications Magic Quadrant, known as an MQ. How many people know what an MQ is? Are you familiar with it? Not that many, actually. I'd say probably maybe a little less than half the room, right? So the MQ, if you don't know the MQ, you may not know who Gartner is. Gartner is the 800-pound gorilla of analysts. So if they cover your workload, your product, right, what they write is read by all of our largest customers, because they go out, and they have a great business, right? So they beat us to death, and we pay lots of money to be beaten to death by them. And then on the other side, they charge customers to read what they write about us, right? Man, this is a good business, right? This is the business you want to be in. And so these folks have written, to be fair, factual items about us, perhaps with a tilt toward, what some analysts might do, which is always create a little bit of controversy. So they've written about us year in and year out, and has caused trouble for both our analysts, for our field to sell the product as well as us in marketing. But nevertheless, they for 12 years have put us in that leader quadrant. So it's a 2x2. Anybody in the upper right, you're happy. Anybody in this side, you're thinking about what you should do for your job, or if you're in this corner down here, you're thinking about what you do for your job, and if you're in marketing and you're in this corner, you're looking for a job. You're done. You should look. So we have been up in that upper right corner for a long time. And so we have dominated this experience, right? And which is great, absolutely great. But the reality, and here's just a little bit more, I won't dwell on this. So this is what a Magic Quadrant actually looks like. And we have participated in every last one that they have asked us to be in. So I'm going to go and skip by that. But the reality is, it is a changing modern workplace. It's absolutely true. I don't need to read all these to you. I want to give extra kudos to my team for not using the word millennial anywhere, because God, I'm tired of seeing that word. But the reality is the workforce is absolutely changing, right? It certainly is, and it already has. You look across this room, and I'm willing to bet that I'm unfortunately much older than most of you in this room. So the workforce is changing for the better in a lot of different ways. And so the way these people want to work is fundamentally different. And this is not just pie-in-the-sky marketing, because look at our competitors, right? Slack. My God, even Cisco showed up with a solution, right? And so the pressure is high, but the company that has all the assets are the people in this room, right? We have these assets, right? We have file sharing, we have SharePoint, all that stuff. All comes across, right? And all these things are harnessed by teams. And so it is only a natural point that we would then begin to look at being in this market. And so, as you guys know, we went ahead and introduced Microsoft Teams, and is rapidly becoming as sometimes what we describe as the front door to Office 365, right? In a lot of ways. And that's not a disrespectful nod to other products. Absolutely not. In fact, they love us, right? Because SharePoint usage has jumped with the usage. Because every time you use Teams, it's pretty hard not to put a file in it. I'm not really sure what you're doing in Teams if you're not actually sharing files, right? And so we drive a lot of usage across the product in many different places, which is great, right? And of course, now with the latest announcement, we're bringing UC functionality to it, right? Talked about that collaboration. There's that file. I've been in the collaboration business for many years. I don't know how many people remember Groove when it was a collaboration product a long time ago. Does anybody else remember that? Yeah, see, there we go. Wow, look at those hands. So I was with that product. And so a lot of times in that product, it was a collaboration product, similar idea, a little bit different architecture, radically different architecture, actually. And so number one thing, right, we kept adding new features. But we'd say to engineering, just make file sharing bulletproof. And so this thing about using the power of enterprise level sharing with SharePoint is amazing inside of Teams, right? Here was a challenge for Skype for Business, to be frank, right? Always challenged on having a consistent API dev platform experience. Little uneven at times. We did great things for some partners, other things a little bit more challenging. Now with Teams, it was built with that in mind. I don't know what the number is now. Do we know? I want to say over 100 apps now have been built. There's plenty of integration points. So it really is amazing what people can do now with Teams. And they are being used, right? And of course, again, going back to all those workloads in Microsoft or Office 365, pick your flavor, we have those security products. We have those things that are available, e-discovery. Things like that are there already built into the product. So some of the best experiences, I'm guessing, I hope the field would support me in this, is when you stand in front of a customer and you're first introducing Teams and they ask you about security, you want them to ask you about security because Slack is very challenged by that. Cisco a little less so, but we basically built on top of what Office 365 has for security. And guess what? If you like the security in SharePoint, I keep going back to SharePoint because file sharing is so important. If you like the security in SharePoint, then you're going to like Teams because it already has that. So there's an amazing amount of really utilizing the best of Office 365 while simultaneously simplifying the usage experience because, as you know, a lot of customers say, wow, there's a lot of options in Office 365. Wow, what do I tell my users about those options, right? And so Teams, like I said, is rapidly becoming one of the main ways to be able to use Office 365 and feel good about that. So what are we doing with intelligent communications, right? So as I kind of already spoke a little bit, we're moving Skype for Business Online, SFBO, into Teams, right? So that transition is now ongoing. You'll see a roadmap, and you'll see us finishing off that roadmap shortly, and we will provide a brand new Skype for Business infrastructure inside Office 365. Now, my verbiage is not quite right. It's already there. So if you're not 100% sure about that, understand that Skype for Business Online has a meetings infrastructure that it uses, and it's fine, it works. But in order to modernize it for the experiences we need for the next 10 years with Office 365 versus the last 5 years, we have built a brand new meetings experience. And Teams runs on top of that. That's why you'll see some interesting conversations around interop and federation and things like that, because we've changed that architecture for the better. And I'll be able to prove that shortly, either by demo, but also you'll see how fast we're moving on this transition roadmap. It's actually pretty amazing. And again, if you've been around for 5 years in Skype for Business, at times I was responsible for publishing a roadmap, and at times it was a challenge, right? We always were very challenged because we had an architecture that was fundamentally based on an on-premises product, a server underneath your desk. I mean, kidding aside, of course not, but it's in a data center, but literally an on-premise based product, right? And that was adapted to run online. Of course, that's great, right? But now that you have 100 million users using Office 365, it's no longer appropriate. We had to take our architecture to the next level. And that's another reason why we felt compelled to bring Skype for Business into Teams. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in a moment, I think. Yeah, so here's a little bit more about that back-end infrastructure, right? So a lot of things that are available in it. What I'll tell you is that the last one is super important, because I used to see the feedback and the escalations around how fast you can join a meeting, right? In Teams, they essentially solve that problem in a lot of ways. Teams performance is amazing in getting inside meetings. It is much faster, right? One of the things is that the reason why they're able to do some of this, and first of all, of course, it's in the cloud, so the telemetry is great. They built it with telemetry in mind, so we're getting a lot of feedback on it. It takes advantage of some good bandwidth rules. Now, of course, some of the client work, there's still work to be done to improve how the client performs on particular platforms, for sure. But the bandwidth is based a lot on this technology, which started at the end of Skype for Business's life, which is, how many people know VBSS? Heard of that, right? Okay, so a handful of people in the room know. So that's video-based screen sharing, and that really what that's about is a modern screen sharing approach that harnessed codecs like H.264 to be able to share screens. That particular thing is now completely integrated into Teams. And what that means is that it can take an actual share, because sharing is expensive on your network. Absolutely. It really takes up a lot, just like video does. And so to be able to have your sharing drop to something like, I believe the slowest speed is 132K, or sorry, speed, but I should actually say consumption of bandwidth is around 132K kilobits, not sure, sorry. It's a KB, right? And so then the higher usage gets up to 4 megabytes, which is vastly superior than what our old technology was. So again, this modernization of the client really does provide an amazing amount of performance to customers, right? And of course, again, we talk about assets, right? So look at the assets that are available now to Microsoft 365. Cognitive services, machine learning, and Microsoft Graph. The way I like to think a lot about it is really this graph. There is an amazing amount of detail we collect safely we collect about customers. Most of it, I think, is completely anonymous, and we understand what customers are doing. We understand what you're doing in an aggregate inside the space, which allows us to make quick decisions about what's going on with the product, both from potentially a support perspective, right? We'll have a lot of, some of the harnessing we're doing now are things like call quality dashboard in the voice area, which is of particular interest to me. But this graph really allows us to really make predictive moments. And this is when we talk about AI and cognitive services, being able to take a look at how you've used data or how a particular customer has used it, and then guide you in decision making. You'll see other sessions this week. I hope all of you go to other team sessions where they go into detail about some of this. But they will talk about that. And they'll talk about all the interesting things that are going to happen with the product, because they'll be able to do that. For instance, an AI in your meeting, understanding what you're doing, can make recommendations about what particularly will be action items. and put them in a list for your approval at the end of your meeting. The AI will understand perhaps who needs to be invited to that meeting before the meeting begins, right? There'll be a lot of interesting moments in the future over the next 10 years as we build out this product. So, of course, I've kind of stole the thunder from my own slide here, so I'm not going to dwell on this too much other than to say one of the things you want to do is tomorrow, if you have time, intelligent meetings with Microsoft Teams. They will go into detail and also, I believe, share some of the future thinking. So if you could put this one on your schedule, we'd love for you to do it. But we'll have these kind of tips throughout the rest of the presentation where we'll say, hey, there's a session that will cover this. And so we absolutely recommend that you do that. And so again, file and chat history, you can already see that today. It's amazing, right? I go to share a file and then I can just drop that box. That was already coming out of Outlook, but now it's inside Teams, and it's really doing a great job. Another great moment, and you'll get to see this, right? Recording, right? We've talked about this already. So today, here's a test. How do you record natively in Skype for Business? In other words, use a Microsoft product to record, besides getting your camcorder out of your desk. It's Windows client, right? That's how you record a meeting. And the list is short. It's Windows client. But Paul, I have customers with a Mac. That's right. Have them use the Windows client. So that was fine. Again, that's a product of the architecture. It made sense at the time. You know, usage of, at peak, when we were really just an on-prem product, was like 95% Windows. So it made total sense, right? Invest in that Windows client. Well, the world has changed a lot, obviously. People want to be in the cloud. They want to be able to use it. So you can already see, and again, here comes the part where my head begins to hurt about which ring we're on, depending on what you're using, where you are in the field, what day of the week it is, whether it's sunny or raining. But eventually, all of us will see this feature, cloud recording, inside, and you'll be able to record meetings, and they will be stored in the cloud. This is great, right? Because, again, cloud recording, recording in general, a meeting with videos, is not a cheap process. That's an expensive CPU process. And so what that means is you're now harnessing the cloud, right, to do the recording on your behalf. You could actually drop off the meeting, and the recording can continue without you, which is very interesting. And then it intelligently stores it depending on what you're doing, either in a channel inside Teams, which is then actually not stored in the channel, right? It's actually stored in Microsoft Stream. This is all very interesting, and Christian's going to show you that a little bit and get a feel for that. And of course, actually, we'll do a little bit more talking about calling in a bit, so we'll go ahead and go by that. But shameless plug, right after this session, I'll take off running out of the room, so don't be offended if you have a question. I make you follow me. I have a cloud calling with Microsoft Teams session, and my colleague, Mark Portier, is the one who actually landed the, and by landed, I mean he drove it from a PM perspective, the calling plans that came to Teams in December. We announced that via blog, right? So come and see that. Then another session on Thursday is especially important if you care about voice within Teams and Skype for Business. We're going to do a hybrid session, and that session will be completely focused on part of the architecture, the future for Teams, and how you'll have, as a customer, enterprise voice, and how you'll have the ability to do both calling plan and this hybrid connection plan, which we'll explain more on Thursday. And between the two of them, we will solve the last mile problem of, and by that what I mean is we have 10 geos in calling plan, but if you haven't noticed or looked at a map lately, there's about 90 or so countries we'd like to do business in. And so we will solve this gap and make sure that we're able to get those people into the plan and enable our field to sell that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about intelligent communications for calls and meeting, right? And so really, this is the future of the product in a lot of ways. Some of this is coming now. Much of this is in the future. But it's important to understand why this change is coming and understand how to help with positioning the product, right? So with intelligent communications, we'll have the benefit of the graph, and we'll have the benefit of cognitive services. And so things like insight and history will be able to provide a deeper context. They envision a day when meetings there will be a bot, which will actually advise you when you create a meeting. Hey, based on the topics you have here, based on who you've interacted with, you may want to think about the following people to join the meeting, which you may have already thought of or you may not have thought of. We hope to also use that history to be able to actually drive understanding within that bot to be able to make further recommendations to you about the content or where content is. So if there are particularly slides you've developed or someone else has developed in that meeting, there's a lot of opportunities here depending on how the customer would like to take this to be able to have this essentially guided experience in the product and help you along as you schedule these meetings. Again, this is something that only we can do, honestly, because of Office 365. Well, I'll be fair. There's a couple of the vendors in the market who either can or are positioned to get there, vendors like Google, Amazon. But honestly, our conventional competitors will not be able to get there. This is absolutely clear if we can make this transition a success. So with that announcement, what we're doing, essentially, this is the way the world's going to look at the end of this transition process downstream. And by end of the transition, I mean when we finally begin moving the last customers off of Skype for Business. If you're a Skype for Business online customer, we're asking you today to look at your options and decide when you would like to make that transition. And customers should be monitoring our roadmap, which we'll show in a moment to all of you so you understand what's going on. Naughty, naughty, don't change without me. But for all those in the room who have on-prem concerns, how many have customers worried about on-premises? Yeah, for sure, right? Many of you do. Totally understand. We are not abandoning the on-prem customer at all. In fact, we have announced a Skype for Business 2019 server that will be coming out in Q4 of this calendar year. Interesting. We must have some transitions in there that I don't know about. Yeah, oops. So we will have that on-prem server available to customers, and customers will be able to continue on-prem. And if you are interested in that conversation, is it on this slide? Yes. In the upper right corner, my colleague Natasha Desai will be presenting on Thursday. She will show you the latest information on the roadmap for Skype for Business Server 2019. Again, great session to come. She'll also share some security improvements that are not directly related, but because oftentimes those who are sitting in and curious about server would love to hear about modern auth and some of the other details, she'll share those as well. And so we continue then to stay focused. However, for the cloud, just to be super clear, if anyone's not gotten this message yet, eventually we will move all customers off of SFBO and they will be in teams. So it behooves all of us, whatever your role in the company, to begin helping customers understand that and help them through that path. Now, you probably right now, many of you are going, this is it. I get to ask them, what's the day? Is it December 32nd, September 31st? What day do we turn it off? You know? And so our answer is we're not announcing that yet. We're not talking about when we turn it off, because what happens is that is a backwards, reversed engineer way of managing if you're a customer. Because once you give them that date, then they do a T-minus calendar and say, we could stay on Skype until this day, right? That's not what we need to have happen. We don't want the longest tail in the history of Microsoft, right? I'm sure there's longer tails because we have products with really long tails, but we don't want that long tail moment. So what we want to do is tell customers, hey, go forward. Start planning your transition to Teams now. Pick your pace. Whether you're a small company, you can move fast, or you're a larger company, you're going to move a little slower. Oh, no, by the way, that feature you asked for, it's coming to Teams. No, it's not coming to Skype for Business Online. Oh, that feature you asked me about where we could have cloud recording, we're not doing that for Skype for Business Online. We're doing that for Teams. So there is an innovation moment, right? Customers who want innovation need to begin thinking about that transition. But at the same time, we want to help them. We have a lot of assets dedicated to that, and I think there's probably sessions that are around that, right? And so, but that is really important for everybody in the room, regardless of your role, to understand. There is a transition period coming, and we want to be proactive about encouraging customers to think about that. And of course, there it is right there. Couldn't ask for anything better. There is a workshop. I think that was, though, by invite, wasn't it? I believe. No, it's open. Okay. That is probably going to be full. So but those of you who really want to hear a workshop about the actual, nuts and bolts of helping customers make that transition, that is not a bad place to be. I bet you'll need to come early to get a chair. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yeah, they did put it in the builder. Okay. All right, great. Okay. Interop is super important as well. I don't think we're going to demo a lot of interop here, but you will see interop in other sessions. It is on the roadmap. We are committed to it. Today, internally, you can see that Skype for Business and Teams can now interact, and you can send messages back and forth. In fact, later on today, I'll demo, in the other session, I'll demo the ability to say which client will receive my phone calls. And I can do it live with one switch in my client and then demo it and show them going back and forth, which is very cool. So we know this has to happen, right? There's not going to be a moment where we, just suddenly it's okay, everybody just goes to Teams and nobody's going to be back on Skype for Business. Many of our larger customers will be in a transition period, and they are building for that in the product. So another session to take a look at for you is the journey to Teams, transitioning from Skype for Business. And some of the PMs, some of the best people to talk to about what's going on with the product will be demoing that as well. Okay, how am I doing for time? Good, okay. So obviously, we talked a lot about client experiences, but we have to move along the meeting experiences as well, right? So we have Skype Room systems. We have 2 generations of them now, V1 and V2, right? V2 is the more recent announcements. And we need to be able to have these people move on. All these folks are either available now or Lenovo's coming out, and I think it may be out already. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure if that's already out of date, because I feel like they released. But essentially, we will help them. As you know, Microsoft's strategy has been more or less we are in charge of the software on these devices, and we let our partners decide the hardware experiences for the most part. And so we will provide the updates to the software that allow them to take Teams meetings inside of these experiences. And most of these are very reasonably priced. Again, a competitive knock against some of our legacy competitors who still hope to sell $300,000 room systems, right? Good money if you can make it, but in terms of a total market, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. People want these small, more dynamic room systems. We also have doing a great thing here as well, solving a video interop issue, right? So you know that, again, Skype for Business has often been challenged, right? Like, it's kind of like the model, the Henry T. Ford moment, Model T, right? Talking about you can have any color you want as long as it's black, right? A car. So we have in the past often it's not been super easy to have video interop between us and other providers, which essentially you could say created a market all to itself, right? And folks like BlueJeans came through that market, Pexip, Polycom, of course, around for a while. But so what we've done is we partnered with all these folks to actually offer video interop services. And each one's a slightly different flavor, so customers can choose which one makes sense to use with your Teams deployment, and you'll be able to allow them to reuse assets they currently have. Again, those legacy room systems I talked about are often the ones you want to really focus on. And so these solve an important point and allow us to have these combination moments where people will be able to have interop, because it usually circles around meetings a lot, right? We just have this hardware. We haven't fully appreciated it yet. We want to be able to use it for a few more years. This enables those people to use those systems. And if you want an update, that's tomorrow at 2:30. And if you want an update on Cloud Video Op, that is on Thursday at 2:30. So, great. I don't think I'll spend a lot of time other than to say that we are focused on those devices to make sure that we have that. Typically, that's called HID. You'll see that on our slide, a poor marketing moment, because nobody actually knows what that word means unless you're the engineer working on it. Human interface design. So we are focused on that as well. Today, many of you have a basic experience with your USB device with Teams, but we will continue to drive that and improve that greatly over the next few months. We also will be focused on Hub as well, and so much like the other room devices we talked about, we will be providing software to update that client as well, so that the Surface Hub will be able to join Teams meetings. All right, so it comes down to what should customers do today? So, curse you transitions. So, plan your journey to Teams, right? How do you do that? Well, a customer should be looking at the roadmap we're publishing, right? So we published the first version in October. I think we'll release the second version this week sometime. I'll be careful because I always like to sandbag just a little bit. If you're in marketing, you learn to carry sandbags and drop them when needed. And so the customers are able to see that public roadmap today and help them understand, because maybe there's a key feature coming from Skype for Business to Teams and they're waiting for that. So they'll be able to see that. But that should not stop most of you from getting customers onboarded into Teams. If they're not kicking the tires in Teams, they are looking at Cisco Spark or they're looking at Slack, right? I'll be very honest with you, right? Majority of the customers are looking at this. This team collaboration space is for real. It is huge. And you can see shows like Enterprise Connect, which we'll be at in a couple months as one of the vendors there. A huge pivot over the last 2 years where they went from being like stodgy old UC guys talking about PBXs and still having conversations like, gee, I wonder if we're really going to have a software PBX that people want, you know. By the way, guys, they're done. It's all software PBXs, right? So we're going to that. And now, in the last 2 years, they've totally made this transition. They want to be the collaboration meeting as well. So UC&C, right? They want to do all that. So the market is there. And so we need to make sure that every customer is at least considering Teams. You need to be positioning Teams because Teams inoculates our accounts against that. And even if you're in support or consulting, you guys know that. You can help block these situations and make sure that we continue to maintain our control of these accounts. Like we talked about, you'll be able to run them side by side. And then we have a lot of assets. Download this slide deck. It will be uploaded. We have a version of it here. We'll upload it again. So check on this in about 24 hours. We'll have this slide deck available. You'll be able to grab any of these assets. And that's super important. Okay. So here's my old selling training coming out to bite me in the butt. But 3 numbers up there. Any guesses why I just leave 3 numbers up there? Because I'm sloppy at slides, perhaps? Maybe. Maybe you think it's Paul's locker room combination in high school, right? Maybe this is the locker I use, and these are the 3 numbers. How many remember having 3 numbers on there? Is there anybody? Really? Nobody? Come on. Okay. Wow, okay, that joke just went flat. All right. But it is a really good image of a locker, right? All right. So actually what we're really talking about is how many features are on that transition roadmap. Approximately 71. One of you out here, you'll get the title of nerdiest person in the room. We'll probably go back and count and see if I got these numbers right or not. But there will be no prize if you do that. Voice features landed to date. So we announced this essentially in September/October, right? So that's 3 months ago. Again, if you were in the category of masochist, as I described some of us lovingly, who have worked on Skype for Business for years, you know at times, again, we struggle with our roadmap, right? And overall features landed to date. That's a third of our roadmap, probably more than a third. I must be in marketing, I can't do the math. That's a third right there. That's huge. How often have we announced a roadmap and in 3 months had a third done? This signals to the market, signals to everyone that we're deadly serious about this transition, and should signal to every employee who might be sitting there going, oh my God, I've got another collaboration product I have to deal with inside at Microsoft. Do I send email? Do I do that? Understand, Teams is the future for Microsoft Office, and you'll see a lot of work drive on that. So let's take a look. We have 3 slides, which we share with customers, right? In 3 buckets, the traditional UC buckets are around messaging, meetings, and calling. So for messaging, you can see again what we've finished today, and I'm not going to read off every item to you. I'll pick out maybe 1 or 2. I'm not sure if I'm going to focus a lot over here. Honestly, if you've used messaging or chat in Teams, you already know, if you're honest with yourself and you look in your heart at night when no one else can see you, it is better than Skype for Business chat. There's a lot of reasons why. There is a history in Teams, right? There's this idea of people-centric. So this is a kind of funny one, right? This sounds like, oh God, the marketing guys have run amok. What the heck is people-centric? Well, who else is using chat, right? Horses, dogs, cats. So it is people-centric, though, and what I mean by that is think about the history of Skype for Business chat. Literally, the history. So if you have a chat, so Martin contacts Christian, and they have a chat in Skype for Business, right? And they do that off and on. You know, they're both from the same country. They love to talk to each other, even though they're in different countries. Those crazy kids. And they love to talk inside this. Months go by. Some of it is fun. Some of it's work. And now they have a collection of chats that are separated inside your Outlook storage, right? Does that make any sense? Like which conversation I have? You can use search to go find it, but it feels like it should be people-centric. In other words, once Martin starts a conversation with Christian, there should be one conversation with a long history in it. Teams does that today. Persistence in chat, right? So the chat persists, subject to IT pro controls and administrators making decisions about it. That chat is there, right? So I don't know about you, but I'm of a certain age where, yes, search is great, but sometimes I just remember 3 months ago in December, Christian sent me a file. I want to scroll back through that chat. It's there. Best of luck finding that file in Outlook. You can find it, but you're going to be doing some work. It's just all these small details, right, that make chat such an interesting object inside Teams. And essentially, I think a much better experience already than what Skype for Business offers, frankly. Okay, meetings roadmap. So this is big. You can see the number of items that have landed since today, essentially. I'm going to pick out just a couple of them. I'll let you read some of the other ones in this transition. So lobby support, I believe, is due. Lobby support is due very soon, as well as anonymous join. We'll go ahead and keep advancing here. So the big one on this slide is calling plan for Teams. If you're familiar with our voice strategy, it's been calling plans along with other hybrid connectivity options. Now we've announced it in December, it's available, and we just announced another country. And I don't really have much graphics. I just kind of want to point out that it is actually, yes, Canadians go yes. One Canadian go yes, I guess. That was the only one to raise his hands. Wait a minute, come on. That's theoretically, it should be 10% or something, right? Of like, anyways. So, right, so we now announce calling plans preview for Canada, which is a big deal, obviously, and a lot of customers will want that. And so basically what I wanted to show you was how 1/3 of our roadmap across these 3 slides are getting there. Finally, this just covers off, again, what I've talked about, Skype for Business Server, a reminder about that as well as when that will be. And then I think I'm going to hop forward because I think I'm running out of time. And yes, so I'm going to bring up Christian, and I think we're going to do a little demo.
Yeah, let me see if they are still awake.
What number do you want? 7? So Christian's crazy. He wants to do the demo on a Mac. What do you think of that, Martin? No? Yeah, exactly. If it was Skype for Business and we wanted to show you all the best features, we would not be doing that on the Mac.
We would do that.
Yeah, maybe today we might do that, but now we're actually going to show you in Teams. So is that, do I get the right one? Okay, great.
So that's actually now the new Mac experience, and as you can see, it's really similar, or it's exactly the same that we have on the PC, right? So as Paul already described, thanks to Electron, it's really the same application, just running in that case on the Mac. So we have all the regular chat files, chat rooms, all the regular stuff. What I like to show here as well is, so we have a regular marketing meeting, so for that week scheduled every day. Martin is already part of that, but as an external user. So he's not part of our organization of that test tenant. What we can also do here now is that we can say we like to edit that meeting, and we like to add someone in addition that is external. So in my case, that's just and that's actually a feature that will come out this week. So it's planned that it will land this week, that you can invite anonymous people to your meetings. It is already working in the Microsoft tenant. It depends a little bit on which ring you are in. So that's kind of brings us back to the rings. So let me just update that meeting so that my personal account also gets that meeting. I now can join the meeting in this exactly same way than from my Windows PC here. So Paul should be already in the meeting.
Yes. The demo gods, Christian, have hunted me down for my criticisms of Skype for Business. And so I am now paying the price for that.
And now, as Paul mentioned before, now we are also able to record the meeting from the Mac client PC. To initiate that, because it's cloud recording, so we can just kick that off from the client here as well. And what I really like about that idea, if my PC crashes, I lose my network connection, whatever, it will just continue the recording, and it's in one file afterwards. So currently that's anonymous join. You can send that to everyone, the meeting.
Yeah, so there's 2 different ways to have external parties join meetings. One, as you've indicated, federation. And then there is this concept of anonymous join, which came to Skype for Business and now took years to come to Skype for Business, and now it's literally has already come. So anonymous joins means you can allow anyone to join your meeting. They're not required to have any kind of credentials. Of course, that means then, you have to verify as the owner of the meeting who's joining your meeting and understand who that is. But for a large majority of our customers, that is sufficient, and they're very happy to allow partners join just by browser to meetings, which is a big request that's often come from the field.
So the recording meeting is currently not in the product. This will land in Q2. So end of Q2, you should be able to see the recording. So what we can now also see is that there's someone in the lobby waiting. So actually that's Martin, and Martin thinks it's very cold in his lobby. So also that feature is planned to land this week. yeah, so that we now have the lobby in the same way as we have it in Skype for Business today. The lobby for the PSTN calling will be a little bit later. So now we have Martin, we can start our video as well. And now what is also new, that I also now able to not only show my desktop, what was over the last months, we also are now able to share really the applications. Yeah. With that, I can also share my screen. And now I'm able to...
Yeah. My machine is not happy with the network right now, so I'm struggling a little bit. I apologize.
Okay. So actually, Martin Martin joined the meeting from his web browser. Yeah. So the web browser is currently only able to consume incoming screen sharing. Yeah. In the future, it will be also able to share out and to take over and so take control. So.
Yeah, don't think we're going to make it. Well, the demo gods once again got a hold of us and broke us over their knee. So I think we move on.
Okay. Okay. So we would be able to also hand over the screen sharing and the control of the screen sharing to another person that has running a full client on the PC or on the Mac. Important here with the browser WebJoin, you can today use audio and video in the Edge browser. In the Chrome browser, it's only currently today voice, but we will land video as well. Yeah, but also in the Chrome browser, you can get incoming screen share. Oh, now he's joined the meeting.
See.
There it is.
All right, the network finally decided to let me on.
Can you request control? Maybe because you were too late for the meeting.
There'll be no control for you.
There it is. So, and now Paul can also really control my Mac. What I really like is this new feature that we can make a kind of a race with our heads here. Yeah. And I can go here to the...
Let me line up for a shot behind you. That's where the forward lasers are.
Yeah, okay. So because in the past it was more about someone steals somehow your mouse cursor all the time, yeah, and it gets really, really, really weird in that case.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm almost certain customers are going to want this experience, right? I mean, it's going to be so much better than what they can even do today in classic sharing in Windows and take control. And it's been an ask again and again. So again, there's that innovation drumbeat, right, that everyone should be aware of that's going into Teams. And if it's a feature they really want, you need to check in Teams because it's probably on a roadmap somewhere. Yep. And so I can actually go ahead and join in as well. Stop talking so much, right? And say, hey there, I'm actually on your machine. Now I will send an email to our boss saying how you don't like it here. No, okay, I won't do that. Okay.
Yeah. So, but actually, as you can see, it's really, so it works really, really well. So interesting part here is also it's no longer RDP. Yeah, so that's really VBSS as well here for the take and control. So if we now stop that meeting, and the interesting thing really, if I now drop the meeting, so the recording will still continue. So, so the meeting still can go on until the point when I rejoin that meeting. And you still can see in my chat history, I see that meeting is going on and the recording is still running here. Also, the recordings will also show up afterwards in that chat history of that meeting. Yeah? And that means, as Paul mentioned before, it is in streams. Yeah? So I can just go to a meeting that maybe was, actually that was today when we prepped our meeting. But we can really, in the client, just go back to the meeting and look at the full meeting. And we will have in the future, we will also have things like transcription, and that all is also searchable. Yeah, so that's also not currently in my ring that I can test, but I think the recording here is very, very good. Yeah. Good, so let me show for a second how the meeting experience looks on the web client. So now I'm on my external PC, so I'm an external guest that just likes to join the meeting. I click easily the link, and I can say, okay, please join on the web now. And it will also give me a preview now of the video. That's a weird thing about my Surface Pro. Yeah, but now it works. So and I can film. Where's Paul? So and I can also now decide. Okay, I don't like to join without with audio. I just can give it a nice name, and that's exactly the same experience that Martin just had before. So now I'm in the meeting as a guest. Of course, I need to wait that someone will let me into that meeting again, and then it really looks the same. Let me mute here again. And now I come through the meeting. Of course, I'm also able to see the screen sharing from the Mac client here as well in a few seconds. There it is.
Very cool.
I think that's very cool, and the experience here is much better than it was before with Skype for Business. Where we
Did you download a plugin?
No.
No. Exactly.
What is a plugin?
Yeah, exactly.
I never heard about
Zero footprint.
Zero footprint. Yeah. So I also had a colleague he was testing. So that works also in Chrome without video today. Yeah, but it also so we tested that on the Mac. We tested that also on a Linux client. Yeah, and with Chrome it just works. Yeah, and that's quite impressive because some customers still have some Linux client around that might be not a big amount of users, but they will be super happy with that as well, I expect. Good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes, by the way.
Thank you.
Maybe you covered this, but when are we going to have a plugin for Outlook for scheduling meetings with Teams?
It's already there.
It's already there, but
Yeah.
is it fully out there, even in the Microsoft IT tenant and so
Yeah.
forth? Okay.
Yeah. So in some cases, what I
do you have to be
saw.
a special ring or something
No.
to have that?
No. So actually, sometimes it gets disabled, yeah,
Okay.
and you just have to check your settings in the add-ins, and there might be
Okay.
the checkbox is
A
not.
couple other questions.
Yeah.
The client seems to take a lot of memory
Yep.
and usage, and
Yeah.
it's not only me, but
Yeah.
a lot of colleagues complain that it's a hog. Are you guys looking at trying to reduce the footprint?
Yeah, actually, and we did a lot of investments in that area, and it really reduced already a lot. Yeah, so it should be much better already. Yeah, but the product group is super aware and working really, really hard on that. So I just saw some statistics about that last week or so, where they really said how they were able to bring that down. Good. So it's number 5, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So the following slides are just our Teams and Skype sessions and transition sessions over the week. So that's the total view. I just highlighted some of the sessions where I think they are really interesting. So most of the sessions are really include the PM, the feature owner of that particular feature. Yeah. And then as Paul mentioned, on Wednesday we will have that workshop. So the workshop, please, if you don't have it in your schedule today and you plan to attend, please put it into your schedule so that we can make potentially some arrangements with the room if too many people are interested in that. Yeah. So we will upload the slides so that you are also able to download that. These are some slides that just additional resources. So you will find them on all Teams and Skype sessions this week. So just to make you aware where you can find your digital RIN rooms, if you have your area RIN rooms, get help, one list items, etc. So it's just a collection of links. I don't think that we need to walk them through to all of them. Then also external facing links like Success with Teams that you also can give to your customers to find good resources about that, also to fast track as well. And then that's an interesting one. So that's a kit that the CSMs has, that you can maybe talk to your CSM to how to bring that kit into your customer accounts. And with that, and with that, we hope that that you enjoyed the session, and we are in the. Please submit the evaluations, of course, and then we are in the Q&A part. Yeah, good.
All right.
With 7
Thank you
minutes.
very much, everyone, for coming. Super appreciate it. We have times for a few minutes of questions, if you'd like. I apologize. I do have to run to a session at 4 o'clock to present, so let's get to it.
Identified myself as being a Canadian.
We will not hold that against you, sir.
Thank you. For Canadians that create a Teams tenant today,
Yes.
Teams is deployed from the US, everything else is in Canada. All data is in Canada except for the chat, which sits with Teams in the US. When Teams comes to Canada soon, what happens to those US-based Teams tenants for those Canadian companies?
Yeah, so the question is, in general, if we have assets that are spread across not in country, And again, it depends, right? If we're talking about that it has to be geolocated, eventually they will migrate that data, I believe. I don't know if you have any background on it. No, I'm not sure. Yeah. We'll have to see where that is. It's typically this concern is with government customers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll have to take a look at that if they're deployed today. I think that's a good question. We'll have to see if we can source that answer for you.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Other questions?
Yeah, here, over there.
Yeah, I got a few of them actually.
Oh.
He brought his laptop. That's how many
did.
questions he has.
I'm a TSP, so I see these things in the field all the time, and they're big blockers for us. There's one thing that we've been hearing about. I haven't seen anything really on the roadmap about it, about like a cloud SBC for Teams.
Yeah.
You were just talking about that. Like,
Yeah. So Cloud SBC for Team Session Border Controller. I believe what you're asking about, sir, is the plan for
Yeah.
BYOT,
Yep.
right? And so BYOT is the internal name called Bring Your Own Trunk, and that refers to a telco trunk. That session is on Thursday in the morning. Look up at the slide. You'll be able to see it there on Thursday in the morning.
10 o'clock.
I see. What time is it?
10.
10. Great.
sweet. So we'll cover
and
that one
you'll
then?
need to go to that one to find out about more about BYOT. But yes, that's the plan.
and API availability and PowerShell configuration. When are we going to start getting those for Teams? There's
API
a lot
and
of our
PowerShell. So actually, there will be a session, and that might be the right one for that. That's
Okay.
the where is it? It's the how to manage Microsoft Teams. So that's the session that also includes the PM that owns the whole PowerShell for Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
So she would be the right one to ask that question. So it's
Okay.
Isabella.
anything about APIs, because I get that from almost every single one of our
Yeah,
partners.
for the
they have
APIs, let me
zero
look.
access.
For sure there is one, but I don't. I mean, we have the building apps for Microsoft Teams. I think that's not exactly what you're looking
Yeah, you're
for.
probably asking for Skype for Business APIs that move over to Teams or something like that. Is that
Well,
what you're?
it's a lot of our probably 10 out of the last 12 clients I visited, they want client recording, not meetings recording. They want to be
Okay.
able to export either all kinds of call statistics that they can't get right now. They would need some contact center functionality, and
Yeah.
none of our partners, none of our developers can even
Yeah.
do anything with that. So we're completely roadblock on
Yeah.
all
So I
those
would say
sales.
for the API for the cloud for the API thing, I would go to James' session actually.
Yeah, I would. Yep.
Yeah. So where's James' session?
Yeah. So the short answer is we have not put anything
Yeah.
on the roadmap specifically about APIs and timing yet. So
Okay.
you'll want to have a conversation. You know, the challenge with the transition to Teams from Skype for Business is that engineering has to prioritize work. And so, as you could probably tell, the API work did meet the same priority level
Yep.
as some of the other work. So as they work their way through, another one in this category is VDI, for instance. Some people have asked about VDI support in Teams. They definitely want to get to that. We won't show it on a roadmap until we have a highly confident plan from engineering about timing and what will actually be in it. And that goes the same for APIs right now.
Okay, so that's all kind of up in the air.
Yeah, it's up in the air in the sense that we are committed to doing work there, but yeah, we won't put a roadmap item on until engineering can actually predict, until we have a high confidence level. That was one of the criticisms of Skype for Business roadmaps. Sometimes things are on the roadmap and they were not at a high enough confidence level. And you would present it to customers and then you'd have to backtrack 9 months later.
Yeah. So and actually to get more call data, etc., it's definitely the session here on Tuesday, the high quality meetings, because that's run by Ori Kashi, who is actually the PM manager of that team that is taking care of all that stuff.
Okay, cool. I'm in that one too. Anything
So
about
I
the
think- sorry.
the PSTN recording just outside of the meetings?
Yeah, so call recording, yep.
Because we
So-
have a lot of compliances that we need
Yeah,
to
so the
follow those.
technology being used for meetings will also apply to call recording, but it will be additional work. So after cloud recording's released, I expect to see a roadmap item before the end of the year that will focus around call recording.
Okay, awesome. Because we have a lot of like 911 customers and everything that are doing that in
Yeah,
government. That
there may be
require
some, so then you pick the long tail item for
Yeah.
sure. So if it comes down to compliance, I can't 100% guarantee, right? So it's the first thing they'll do in something like this. They'll build a feature that works for a vast majority of the customers. I just don't know if it's going to be a compliance recording feature yet or not. So that we'll need to see when we actually get it on the roadmap, what details are there.
it. Okay,
So to be cautious with that, right?
Yeah.
The first iteration of it will be basic recording, right? Call
Yep.
recording.
awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, the call center applications which are using Skype infrastructure, what is the recommendation? Would they need to change their infrastructure when they move to Teams?
Yeah, so so for people on call centers and they have already integrated Skype for Business, is your question? Yeah. So, we've talked about it's a journey. So those customers will probably be some of our last customers to go as we sort that out. Today we don't have any plans to build a call center application. And so then it comes down to a question of whether or not we'll have the proper APIs and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of dependencies there. So all I can say is we won't ask a customer who has that kind of architecture to be the first to move, right? We're going to take the low-hanging fruit as we move through asking customers to migrate. And eventually we'll get to those, but there'll be a longer tail on that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you.
I think it was, or I
Just
don't
one
know.
more. So for instant messaging on mobile clients, is Teams a viable replacement for WhatsApp at this point in terms of immediacy of messages being delivered? And I found with the Skype for Business client, I can't really use it with policing customers because it can be quite slow for messages to come through on an Android device, for example. So is it a good WhatsApp replacement, I guess, at this point?
Yeah. I think. So I'm sorry. Let's unpack your question. Are you saying that today you're having a bad, or customers having a bad experience with Teams and messaging, or?
No, I've got customers at the moment that are using, in health and in policing, who are using WhatsApp.
Okay.
And we've discussed with them about using Skype for Business on-prem. And the mobile client is not quick enough to get the messages
Correct.
to the user.
Yeah.
So is that a better experience with Teams now?
Yeah. Generally, messaging should be a much better experience with Teams.
Yeah,
I
actually
don't think
there's-
go ahead.
Oh no, we will do that as a digital session. So we will record a digital session on Compete with WhatsApp, actually. Yeah. So, and I would say if the product team is able to do a Compete session for WhatsApp, then there
I
should
think we
be
have some
enough
guidance for
power
you on how
behind
to.
that,
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you. If you could share details on that, that'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah. That'd be great. So yeah. So look for
sorry.
that. The answer is look for digital sessions. There's something new this year at Ready where they're doing sessions that were never live. They're only recorded. You'll want to look for a session based on that material around Compete, if that's your question. Sir?
Question about call recording. It's
Yep.
basically customers running KT sessions and learning sessions over Skype for Business and Teams in the future. Is there a way that they can figure out or know how many people touch the recording offline after the recording has been
Yeah,
done?
so that's actually when the recording comes. Yeah, so as we store it in Stream, you can directly see also in Microsoft Teams how many people already looked the video.
Can you utilize, for example, Power BI to run a dashboard report on who attended?
So say it again.
Can we
Once we have a
utilize
report
Power
on the number
BI,
of
for
users
example,
across
to know
recordings.
how many people attended the session offline?
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I think that's going to be a Microsoft Streams question. I'm sorry, I don't think we have the answer for you. I would assume that we're going to provide some kind of interface to allow you to actually look at that, because it is somewhat competing with people who are, folks who like Panapto and stuff who have products which try to actually have recording and then how to monetize it and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if there's a stream session or not this week. It's probably a good question. Probably not, yeah. If you want to email one of us, we can try to find out for you. But yeah, essentially the recording engine and storage is done in Stream, which Teams leverages.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Last one.
Last question.
Yeah.
Paul, I noticed in one of the opening slides you showed the new admin portal. Do you know when that's coming? You realize it's in your deck? It's a
I
picture of the
don't
admin
think it's
portal.
really on the roadmap with a date. Yeah, but a good question
But your slide
for that
shows
is really to ask here in Ori's session.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, so tomorrow. And I know that they will show a lot of stuff from the new admin portal. So you will
Okay,
get, so that
thanks.
will be really, really. Oh no, sorry, it's not that session. It's in the, it's on the how to manage on Wednesday.
Okay, any other questions?
Nope.
I have one. So it's about interoper. So you said that Teams is better. I mean, you can have a better experience for IM, which is true if you're only on Teams. If you're on Skype for Business, it's really bad. You don't have federation, for example. So if I receive a message from a federated and I'm using Teams,
Yeah.
I have to switch back to Skype for Business to answer to the message.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or if I receive a message from someone that is writing me to Skype for Business, I have Teams as a default client. Maybe I think that I'm speaking with someone on Skype for Business, but I'm not, so I cannot share desktop. So
Correct.
the interoperability story, it's really bad at the moment.
Correct.
And is there any plan to get it better?
Have you seen the roadmap?
I did.
Yeah, so we actually do talk about some of those features coming on the roadmap. Some of it is not done yet. I also will point out that if you are using it internally, I hope you like Purina Dog Chow, because you are having dog food, okay? And that's something really important to keep in mind, right? You're not in a production tenant. You are our first and best tester. So this is an interesting question I have a lot of times with different folks throughout the field and in other parts of the organization. Like, wow, the experience is really bad. Hey, bad news, you're a beta tester whether you knew it or not. And so I know that's a tough thing to hear, but it's on the roadmap. And I don't see how we cannot get to a state where interop and federation is in a much better experience. It won't be perfect, but we're going to have to improve it. I would say it's already light years ahead of where it was just 2 months ago. I'm having pretty sufficiently good chat conversations with people purely in Skype for Business now. There is a lot of stuff missing. Keep in mind that things like sharing, I don't think you'll see that anytime soon between the two apps. The expectation will be that you go ahead. There are some scenarios that might be supported, but we have to be cautious about that. You should expect with Teams that you will be encourage those customers to run side by side so they'll be able to have like a sharing experience in Teams. I have seen a demo. I would say it's not in even our dog food yet, where they literally, someone from Skype for Business, or excuse me, someone in Teams starts a meeting with someone in Skype for Business, and then it opens up a Teams-only sharing experience. So they're experimenting to see how that might work. There's a lot of, there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, but totally get what you're saying. It's just a little early yet. We're planning to be done with the transition approximately June or July, I would say, with a majority of the features. And I'm hoping Federation Interop will make a couple big steps forward then. Yeah, so great session to go to nail that one down.
The other question is, why did we position Teams as a replacement of Skype for Business and not a collaboration software since the beginning? And then when it was ready, adding just the Skype for Business part. Because it creates a lot of confusion and partner. They will not really touch Teams at the moment because they are not sure about the roadmap, even if the roadmap is there. And the customers, the same. Why do I have to invest on Skype for Business when a team is coming, PSTN is coming, maybe not now? So it's really hard to sell it from partner point of view. I'm working with a partner.
Yep.
So I know that there's no answer.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. So I'm going to give you a little tough love, if that's all right. The tough love is, tell me what day it would have been perfect to do this. There is no day. There is no day. We put a stake in the sand and we began this process. And the reality is that I've sat on calls and got screamed at by MVPs who were so upset they had to stop so they could catch their breath. But you know what? I thought about this really hard. I really have, because I feel for you, right? And I feel for everyone. And I feel for myself, to be frank, because I'm one of the front people who take these arrows and slings, right? So the reality is that no matter when we started this transition, there was no good time. And so we hire really good people like you and me and the rest of the people still in this room to be able to help customers kind of get over the emotional hump. Some good things that are happening, right? Since there's no good time, that's why we're really not eager to say, by the way, we're turning this thing off on December 32nd, because we're not doing that, right? And so the reality is that we're building a really long rampway for people to make this transition. Had we started sooner on it, maybe it would have been better, but I think all you were saying is we would have moved back the whole thing a year earlier, and you and I would have had this conversation a year ago saying, why did you not start it earlier or later or whatever? I honestly don't believe now, looking at everything that's happened to us and all the long hours we put in, that there is a good time to tell a customer that a major product they love is being transitioned into another product. It is a reality. What drove us in terms, so you say, okay, that's fine, Paul. Well, maybe you won't say that, but I'll say that. Paul, that's fine, Paul. But the reality is that the market drove us, right? If you want to talk about it, again, I named it, right? Slack had announced 5 million users in February of this year, right? If we did not do this, then all your cousins, your aunts, your uncles would say, God, same old Microsoft, we're too slow to the gate. We're not making these changes. We don't react to the market. Cisco, famously slow, is moving faster than you. I mean, I could write a lot of the articles that criticize Microsoft strategies. So, I totally understand that feeling you have, but I would also say, hey, there's just no way that this would have been completely smooth. And we're just all working really hard to try to make it as smooth, given that we had a market moment to respond to. So,
Yeah, I mean, I get your point, but so the feedback I have with my partner, even the customer, is that they perceive Teams as a replacement of Skype for Business and
Correct.
not as a
Skype for Business
collaboration
online.
instrument. Yeah,
Yeah.
not a collaboration instrument. So maybe
Yeah.
it was better to position like a Slack competitor since the beginning, so they understand that that's for collaboration. Because we first said it's a Skype for Business Online replacement, and then we said
so
it's
yeah,
a collaboration
So sorry.
issue.
I think we're still going. Okay, I'll let you have the last word on that one. Okay, other questions? Sure.
I'm too short, so you don't see. Let me move it. So if you have a pre-existing recurring meeting and it's on Skype, do the users have to cancel that and recreate it for the?
Yeah, there should be a meeting transition tool, and I think Christian's even done a little work on that. Senor Chat. We do have a meeting transitions tool available. That's probably more, you need to go to session on one of the transition ones, but I do know that I've seen it. We've actually migrated a couple of people internally, and it did fix their meetings. Yeah. You have a Skype for Business meeting coordinates, and then it goes through and.
Especially if you're a recurring meeting, they don't want to have to recreate.
Yeah, so I believe there's a tool that actually sweeps through your meetings calendar to take care of that. I don't know, it's not from the server side. Right. Yeah, and is it productized, or is this something we're just seeing internally as a?
So I know we have it for if you come from Skype on-prem to online, we have meeting migration service. I'm not sure if that's capable of doing Teams transition today. I don't know.
Okay, all right. So there's probably a little bit more work to do. Probably, I'd have to, sorry, I don't mean to punt, but I have to punt you to the transition session.
Okay.
So if that's okay, thank you.
That's the Wednesday one.
All right. Oh, one more?
Yeah. What's the plan for
Thank you
the
very much. Appreciate it.
Skype for Business and the Outlook Web Access integration, the Skype for Business Basic Chat?
I couldn't hear that. Skype for Business for the?
The Outlook Web Access integration, the Basic Chat?
Sorry, Web Access integration, basic
Outlook,
chat.
Outlook Web Access.
Oh, OA.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm sorry. So what you're asking is, are we going to put the Teams client inside OA in some way? The answer is, I haven't seen it on the roadmap, and I'm not saying no to it, but I haven't ever seen anyone talk about that. I don't think there's a plan for that at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. So definitely offline, if you want to send me the scenario, Paul Cannon, my alias is Paulcan, send me that scenario and just a rough number of you think customers in your world that are affected by it. That would be helpful. And I'm not saying I can get an answer, but I can at least get that information into engineering and have them think about that.
Will do, Paul. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so
session.
much. Really appreciate it. Is that it? Guys, thank you very much.